Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. If you love to cut through all the noise and just get straight to the facts, well, you are in exactly the right place. I am absolutely thrilled to be your guide as we uncover exactly what's happening in the real estate market as of April 2026. We're looking at fresh data directly from the source to see exactly where the market stands today. Okay, let's dive into this. We're going to start with the active inventory picture, then move to the speed of the market, analyze some real estate pricing trends, and finally wrap up with what this means today.
All right, Section 1, the active inventory picture.
3.37. Actually, I want to slow down for just a second to let this heavy-hitting number really land. Right now, our housing supply sits at exactly 3.37 months. If you're kind of new to this metric, actually think of it like this. It simply means that if absolutely no other homes came onto the market starting today, it would take precisely 3.37 months to sell every single house currently listed. So this right here is our baseline. And, well, the data brilliantly illustrates the direction that baseline is actually moving. Comparing month-over-month changes for April 2026, our supply of 3.37 months represents a slight increase of 0.93%. But at the exact same time, the absorption rate, the speed at which available homes are being sold, sits at 29.67%, which is a perfect mirror image drop of 0.93%. So supply is creeping up just a tiny bit, and the rate buyers are observing that supply is dipping just a tiny bit. Honestly, this is our very first clue about who is starting to gain a little bit of market leverage.
Moving right along, Section 2, speed of the market.
So looking at the wider 12-month journey of how long homes actually sit before they finally close, the average days on market and the median days on market rise and fall in a pretty similar rhythm. They both peaked right around the start of 2026 before kind of sloping downwards into April. But man, notice the massive gap between those two lines. That gap is absolutely crucial to understand. On the left, we've got the average days on market sitting at 83 days, but on the right, the median days on market is at just 55 days. Now, why does this matter to you? Well, because market outliers, think of like a multi-million-dollar mansion that just sits on the market for 300 days, those are going to heavily skew the average upward. The median, however, finds the exact middle point of the whole shebang. It tells us that half the homes sold faster than 55 days and half sold slower. So 55 days is the reality for the typical buyer and seller, not 83 days. And when we look at the immediate month-over-month change for April, we're seeing a noticeable drop for the average. The average days on market decreased by 2.35% this past month. But the median pace, well, it remained completely flat at 0% change. The typical house is still taking exactly 55 days to sell, just like it literally did last month, even though the average makes it look like the whole market is speeding up. All right, Section 3, real estate pricing trends. It's the golden question, isn't it? What are people actually paying right now? Not what a house is listed for, but the final closed sales price. Let's let the data answer that for us. Now, what's truly revealing over the past year is the gap between the average sales price at the top and the median sales price at the bottom. Just like we saw with the days on market, the high-end luxury homes pull the average price way, way up, nearing the $600,000 mark recently. But look at how smooth and steady that median line is. It barely fluctuates in comparison.
$449,000. This is your truest anchor point for a typical transaction in April 2026. Half of all homes sold for more than this, and half sold for less. If you are setting your expectations for the middle of the market, this right here is your baseline.
But, here is where the plot kind of thickens. When we look at the immediate one-month shift from March to April 2026, both the average price and the median price experienced a downward shift. The market as a whole actually got cheaper this past month. Let's look at exactly how much cheaper. The average price dropped to $599,310, which is a pretty significant 6.08% drop in just one single month. Meanwhile, the median price dropped to $449,000, which is only a 1.32% decrease. So the really crucial point is this. The top of the market, those luxury homes making up the average, well, they're cooling off much faster than the middle of the market. The typical home price is softening, sure, but really just slightly. Which brings us to Section 4, what this means today. When you put all these metrics together, it really begs this vital question. So who actually has the leverage right now? Are we in a buyer's environment or more of a seller's environment? Well, here are the distinct clues we've gathered. Number 1, supply is slightly rising to 3.37 months, while the absorption rate dips. Number 2, the median pace of the market is holding perfectly steady at 55 days. And number 3, pricing is experiencing a month-over-month dip, with the high end taking a fairly sharp drop. When you combine all of these, they show a market that is gently decelerating. It's not crashing, but it is taking a breath. For buyers who have just been waiting for a bit more supply and maybe a slight softening in prices, this data absolutely reveals a developing window of opportunity. If there is one core concept I really want you to take away from this explainer, it's this. The contrast between average and median data tells the real story of the market. Focusing on median numbers over averages protects you from being completely misled by market outliers. Whether it's the 55 days on market or that $449,000 price tag, the median is for sure your best friend when trying to understand what the typical buyer and seller are actually experiencing on the ground.
Which leaves us with this final, honestly pretty provocative thought. Will this immediate one-month price cooling trend actually continue into the summer, creating more leverage for buyers? Or is this just a brief market pause before things heat right back up? Well, the only way to know for sure is to keep following the data. Thank you so much for joining me today. I absolutely can't wait to dive into the numbers with you again next time to see exactly how this story unfolds.